Welcome. In this lecture, we will talk about some of the major developments from down to earth. So, the first is the folk art forms. Now, the college lectures from Odisha have talked about supporting the artists to preserve the local culture and the traditions. There have been various efforts done for the same to explore the folk art and work with nearly 20,000 artists to connect with them on making the various traditional instruments by the tribes like Dongriya, Khond, Bonda, Bunjia, and Kishan communities, and work with them for the Matirkala. Those are some of the important efforts that have been done. However, these efforts have not been restricted to a region, but they have been spread in the nearby areas of Odisha as well. The next is MPOX. Now, MPOX, we have covered one of the videos separately. The idea was the first instance of Mpox was declared in 2022 as a public health emergency. However, at that time, the extent was very limited, and it was the clade 2 that was found, which was mainly from male to male sexual contact only. However, later on, clade 1b has been found as one of the new subtypes, which has spread mainly through household contact as well. The initial cases were detected back in 1970s in Congo, and now it has been spreading to many countries. The common symptoms include fever, rash, and pus from blisters. The immunity or the vaccination for Mpox is not yet revealed out, but it is believed that if a person has a vaccination for smallpox, it would provide significant immunity to the person. However, the fatality rate has been as high as 5% in adults and 10% in children. The outbreak with the subtype 1b has been very in light, and there are certain antiviral treatments which have proved ineffective. For example, tecovirimat has been proved ineffective, and the vaccines for smallpox like Genos and ACAM 2000 have been said to provide cross protection in limited amount. Now, this year is a year where we are witnessing La Nina, and as a result, there is extreme rainfall across the countries. Landslides have been significantly high. We have seen in the previous issue how Wayanad landslide in Kerala happened, and now we are talking about the landslides in Himalayas, in the regions of eastern Sikkim, in the regions of Gangtok district, where the powerhouse of Tista stage 5 hydroelectric power has been managed, and there have been access to the main road which has been blocked. Now, similarly, heavy rainfalls have been seen in Tripura. It have been seen in parts of Himachal Pradesh, and there have been series of disaster. Even the Wayanad disaster, the area where it happened, had nearly 48 stone quarrying centers, of which some of them were non-operational, some of them were abandoned. But the extreme weather factors have created higher vulnerability on the slopes, and as a result, landslides during heavy rainfall have triggered. There have been a high level working committee which was established back in 2012 to have a development plan for Western Ghats. The former chairperson of ISRO, Krishnaswamy Kasturi Rangan, actually led this and identified the various villages and the ecologically sensitive areas and recommended banning of the harmful activities in those areas. Directives were issued under the Section 5 of the Environmental Protection Act 1986, and then there was another report which talked about violations of the regulation with the quarrying activity that was in the regions of Wayanad in Kerala, and that was responsible for the plight of the landslide in Wayanad. So there have been various legal battles which have been going on for the ecological sensitive area, and Western Ghats ecological panel, ecology panel, expert panel has submitted their reports talking about the recommendations. However, the restrictions were opposed by Kerala government, and the series of events that took place have been written here, so you can just have those in the handouts and go through them. But again, there were certain rules when we talk about quarrying activities. How much explosives would be allowed for quarrying activity within 50 meters of the essential areas, and from 100 meters of the forest areas. So those were some of the guidelines that were brought under existence, and the permits were issued on a specific basis for 12 years or for 3 years. What kind of queries have been there, based on that the areas were identified and the permits were issued. Even the lax was seen in the permits that were granted. Now, talking about the solar power, right? So this innovative power generating material which has been devised is an ultra thin flexible material which provides a coating onto cars, mobiles or backpacks, and this would be simply multiple light absorbing layers which would transform into single solar layer, and then it would capture the light and encourage development of solar energy from there. So this is one of the new developments. However, there has to be the conversion efficiency which has to be brought. For now it is only 27%, and the idea is to allow development up to nearly 45% of the efficiency that could be seen. The next is increasing food inflation in India. So we have seen over year and year the food inflation has been rising. Now it has been attributed to multiple facts. The first is there are changing weather conditions, changing climatic conditions, and the second is more importantly, the area under cultivation has been affected. Erratic weather conditions have also been affecting it. Now, studies by RBI have said that food inflation has become endemic in certain areas, and we need to move out from the conventional methods of farming and focus more on production, consumption and demand patterns. And the studies have quoted that in the last 4 years itself, the food inflation has gone by nearly 3%. The rate has almost doubled on an average for 6.3% in 2020, and this also has attributed to multiple disruptions, not only just in the climatic activities but also talking about impact of monsoons or rising temperatures, and this has affected the persistent food inflation prices. Also, we have seen from 2020 to 24 nearly 57% of the months have experienced a food inflation of more than 6%, which is extremely high, and there has to be researches which must be brought. Now if we talk about the food inflation, it is expected to rise by 2% in India, along with the countries which are facing severe food inflation like Iraq, Mali, Mauritania, Saudi Arabia. The overall inflation globally, if we say about food, is rising at about 1%, but in India is around 2%. 2% itself looks a small number, but accumulatively it becomes a very big number for Indian families. So as a result, the cost of living is rising, and this cost of living which is rising is giving a crisis boost to the major cities in the country, and as a result there is a movement back from the cities to the rural areas. Even in the later section we would understand how we during the 1990s reform we moved towards globalization. It was not just India which moved towards globalization, but many countries forwarded towards the idea of globalization. Now most of the countries are again moving back from globalization to localization, so it's like a cycle going up and down. So that's what is really important to understand. Now with rising food price, there is a significant impact on the economic status of a person. The disposable income, the purchasing power parity reduces, and as a result the person gets pushed into poverty deeper. Even the availability of the food items have been reduced significantly. There are more number of adulterations within the food items which are now seen because of the rising prices, and if you want to meet it on the same price, there is no other option but to adulterate the food services. As a result, we have seen significant shocking price rises, and also rising cases of malnutrition and wasting in the newborns and infants. The next is the amalthas flower. Now amalthas is one of the beautiful flowers which grows along with palash and kachnar on the mountain sides, and even it is seen blooming in the areas where you have moderate kind of climatic conditions, yellow in color, and this is also called as golden shower or cassia fistula, and is basically native to Indian subcontinent. During the prayer seasons, it is offered to Lord Vishu in south, and this is considered as one of the auspicious flowers. Even if the people cannot have this flower fresh, they would consider using the dried flowers for the ceremony on the morning of Vishu, which is the Malayali New Year. Now this is offered usually to Lord Krishna, and there are various religious aspects associated with it, but along with that it has numerous medicinal properties as well. A lot of research has not been done on it yet, but yes, It has a particular antimicrobial activity which works against Staphylococcus aureus and fungus asparagus. Because of this antimicrobial property, it is used for wound healing. It is also used for diabetes patient. It has iron oxide nanoparticles which gives anti-hyperglycemic effect. Also, they are antioxidants and they scavenge the free radicals. It is also used for industrial purposes, and even the ticks which are sitting on the buffaloes, to get them rid of it, amaltas is used because it has ethanolic extract which actually reduces the tick population on the buffaloes. So compared to other flowers, the pods are long and cylindrical. They turn woody and brown as they mature, and they usually the pod falls from the tree when mature, but this amalthas remains intact and is actually therefore also used by children for the sound, the rattle sound that it has when it dries. So when you shake it, it gives a sound, a rattling sound. In Ayurveda, it is used as a laxative for skin conditions, for scabies, boils and glandular swellings. Also, it is used for micro and macronutrients. It is rich in potassium, calcium, iron, magnesium, aspartic acid, glutamic acid and lysine, and provides a good amount of energy. It is grown naturally in the forest. It is also used as an ornamental plant. It increases the soil fertility because it does the work for nitrogen fixation as well. And then we would talk about some of the developments from the poultry sector. Now, interesting to note, a lot of poultry is going for fast food chains like Domino's Pizza, Dunkin Donuts, Hong's Kitchen, Poppies are some of the outlets which have been taking the raw material or the poultry from Jubilant Food Works Limited. Now, JFL, Jubilant Food Works Limited, had numerous restrictions onto it, and it was important to check whether they are meeting the regulations or not. And it was a regulation that they should avoid any kind of antibiotic use in the poultry. This poultry, which is specifically going for the fast food chains, and there was a policy which was brought in, which was called as no antibiotics ever. However, the companies have been urging that they have been avoiding the use of antibiotics since 2017 because there was a threat of antimicrobial resistance that popped up. However, later on it was seen that in some cases there was overuse and misuse of antibiotics among poultry to prevent certain kind of diseases and to promote quicker growth in the organisms. And as a result, this report has highlighted how antibiotic resistance has been grown as compared to other food producing animals which were tested. Now, this study was exclusively done by Center for Science and Environment, and which is a think tank based in Delhi, and the results were brought, and it was seen that the multinational food chains pledged to serve chickens without antibiotics in US, Canada and other parts of Europe have not met the similar commitments for India. So in India, we are now trying to gradually eliminate antibiotics from the supply chain, and JFL remains the only company which is having an India specific policy. The Jubilant Food Works have been progressively working to eliminate it, and the 4 phases it has worked has been given here. You can just go through that. So the idea is to maintain a healthy farm environment, to conduct regular swab tests, check the water samples from the place, monitor the temperature and the humidity, the fan fogging conditions, ensure good quality feed which is being given to them, prevent the entry of pathogens into the area where they are giving, allowing only people with PPE to enter in, maintaining vehicle and visitor logs, using vehicle sprays, and ensuring that the farm is located within 100 kilometers of the processing facility so that the birds can be transported efficiently. Optimizing the farms is again important. So every production cycle is nearly 35 days, and farmers receive a minimum of rupees 6 per kg of the bird weight as a bonus based on the farm management and low feed conversion ratio. So that actually motivates the farmers to have friendly measures in the farm. So those were some of the important things. And then for the growth and disease prevention, alternatives to antibiotics have been used. Now these could be prebiotics, toxin blenders, herbal extracts, essential oils, probiotics or enzymes that could be given. Then the shift in the industries is again important. Although JFL had been one of the official antibiotic use policy, there are retailers like Meatrite, Licious, Mitigo, It's Farm Fresh, Tender Cuts, which also offer products free from antibiotics and antibiotic residue. So again, this has to be taken into consideration. The next is PM Kusum Yojana, which is basically the idea of Kisan Urja Suraksha Evam Utthan, and it talks about replacing the diesel and the electric irrigation pumps with solar pumps. The additional energy which is generated with the use of solar pumps can be sold to the discoms, and farmer can have an additional income because of it. Now this is a challenging task. They have to pay an extra 40,000 upfront, but once installed, this would actually tremendously change the scenario. So if we look on to nearly 93% of the pumps installed in 5 of the states, even despite 28 states have approved the solar pumps, so the installation is very less. If we talk about the solar imprints which has been seen, the carbon footprint which has been seen, it's again important. So there are 3 components. One is managed by the Rajasthan Renewable Energy Corporation in Rajasthan, the other handled by horticulture, the third handled by the DISCOM department. So the approach actually talks about the replacing the diesel would actually cut the greenhouse gas emissions by nearly 11.5 million tons in India, and that is a significantly big amount. If we look on to some of the provisions which have been brought into, and those are mainly for the services to the farmers for next 5 years and the assistance, the farmers would be heard. Any problem related to the solar panels which have been established would be ruled out, and this statistics is one of the most important statistics. Now World Bank estimates that India has nearly 8.8 million diesel water pumps. Replacing even 1/4 of those would reduce the carbon emissions by 11.5 million tons. Now, if consider all of them are replaced, this would cut the carbon footprints by nearly 46 million tons, which is a huge amount. And therefore, the scheme of PAT, Perform, Achieve and Trade scheme, has been brought by the Bureau of Energy Efficiency in 2012 with the idea of reducing carbon footprints through various industries, which mainly include the cement industry, the steel industries and the thermal power plants in the next 6 years from 2012 to 2016, and potential development has been seen. The next is the rising cases of obesity worldwide. Now, we have seen that there are cases of obesity rising in India, rising in United States. However, there are some places in Pacific Island which have the most unfortunate distinction of having the highest obesity rate in the world, and these are the regions of American Samoa, Wallis, Tonga, Tuvalu, and they have extremely high obesity and overall weight index. The reason is they don't have good agricultural growth in the region, and as a result most of the population relies on fast food culture. Along with that, there are genetic factors which are responsible for that. But despite this fact, these nations are not in news because they have a maximum population of around 50,000, and the obesity rate of 70% would not count actually more in real numbers. But if there is an obesity rate of 70% in India with 130 crore population, you would have an extremely big figure. So therefore, we need to understand that despite the high prevalence of obesity in these smaller Pacific Island nations, it is not a cause of that concern. But in India, this concern has been significant. ICMR has brought us studies which talks about India diabetes study in 2021, which says that there were 101 million diabetic and 136 million pre-diabetic in India, and many of them have been attributed to obesity as one of the major causes. So 70% of India's population is considered as obese or overweight, and this is paradoxical in India because on one hand we have a severe amount of malnutrition and underweight and wasting cases in the newborns and the young population which is seen. there have been various methods which have been brought, and drugs which have been brought. There are various pharma companies working for anti-obesity medicines. Biocon Limited is talking about the first genetic version of Nordisk liraglutide, which is an injectable version, and the patent is set to expire in November this year. Also, the Indian government is talking about incentives to boost local production of GLP-1 drugs by 2026, and if that is brought in, it would be an idea to go forward with experimental drugs for treating type 2 diabetes and obesity as well. Now, we have talked about various weeds which have been growing across the globe, and some of the important weeds which have been affecting the region have been mainly the aquatic fern, which is known as giant Salvinia or Salvinia molesta, and these have been first observed in 2018 and now have spread to nearly 4,000 water body in terms of 4,000 hectares of water body. Now, this aquatic fern originates from Brazil and is a floating perennial plant. It was first exotic and introduced in Sri Lanka in 1930s as an ornamental plant, but later became an invasive species in whole of South Asia. And then there was an article that talked about the high nitrogen and temperature of 30 degree. The plant can double every 8 days and the biomass every 2.2 days, which creates a mat of nearly 1 meter deep, and it spreads across waterways, choking the waterways, hindering the transport and the hydroelectric generation in the region. So this weed undergoes 4 stages to combat this aquatic fern. There is a weed, Salvinia wheelie, which undergoes 4 development stage: larva, egg, larva, pupa and adult. The adult petals are nearly 2 to 3 millimeters long, dark, which feed on the leaf buds, causing them to blacken and die, and therefore damage can be done on the aquatic fern. However, if they burrow into the rhizome, they can also lead to the plant death. The weed population reduces, and that also reduces the beetle population at the same time. So there have been efforts which have been done not just to combat this weed, but for other weeds which have been spreading drastically in the region. There have been various methods of removing the weeds which have been growing in the region, because these weeds also hamper with the HEP supply and the hydroelectric power generation. So some of the important agents, biocontrol agents, are super agents of 32 biocontrol, and these have shown remarkable success in eradicating the invasive weed species that are prevalent. So some of the common weeds, the list is given here, and some of the biocontrol agents, the list is given here, and once they are introduced into a new environment, they can actually prove effective based on the type of environment, whether it is a wasteland, rangeland, or the kind of existence that is seen. There are 23 established species, of which 6 of them have considered to be excellent, 13 offer partial control, and 4 have minimal impact. But these biocontrol agents have a very high target of 55% success for aquatic weeds, followed by 46% for managing the pests, and then 23% for terrestrial weeds. Also, during the British rule, we have seen that the prickly pear opuntia plants have been introduced, and they were introduced as edible fruits or forage or for dye. But this weed has spread to nearly 35 million hectares, and there are biocontrols which are mainly the Zygogramma biocolata, which is a beetle from Mexico, which was introduced by Indian Council for Agricultural Research in 1983, and this has a very good growth during monsoon period, and monsoon period it can actually combat the existence of the prickly pear. Similarly, there is another biocontrol strategy for water hyacinth, Jalkumbi as it is said, and this is mainly the lantana species. On the lantana species, lace bugs can be released. Similarly, stem gall fly, also a moth for the Siam weed, is very successful. Grass crab is successful for Hydrilla and Wellisneria. So different species, there are different weeds which could different biocontrols that could be used for different weeds which are there into existence. Now, as we already said, we are on a wave from moving towards localization from globalization, and the various backlash against the Arthur-Dunkel draft has been outlined under the establishment of WTO. Gates was under the negotiation for opening up the trade for agriculture and establishing the seed rules, which led to major conflicts. Again, there have been one of the major studies which is done for tuberculosis vaccine. So BCG is the common vaccine which is given for tuberculosis, but now there is an adult version of it which is given in certain circumstances if the person has a history of tuberculosis. If has been exposed to a person living with tuberculosis, then adult BCG vaccination has been given under programmatic implementation, and this has proved out to be highly effective and successful. So any individual over 18 years can go for a booster dose, because the first dose lasts for nearly 10 to 15 years, but if there is a prevalence or a condition, then revaccination is prescribed, and it has been recommended by WHO in 2017. So then there have to be further studies for which there are more developments that are to be done for the TB vaccination in case there are more infectious cases that can be released in the future. So those are some of the important developments that we have seen under these. Now, besides this, the new vaccine which has been released for TB by the ICMR has been tested as recombinant BCG vaccine and a heat-killed mycobacterium vaccine as Immunovac. And then there is Bharat Biotech Hyderabad, which is working with Spain's Biofabric for clinical trials on MTB-Vac, which is the first TB vaccine derived from a human source. So those are some of the developments that have been done on this slide. But yes, if a person had a history of TB, had a close contact with TB patient, or has a body mass of less than 18 kg per square meters, or age 60 and above, then revaccination is one of the suggestions, even if the person has a history of diabetes or tobacco smoking. Now, there have been issues relating polluting of the rivers. NGT has been referring or submitting reports to poor water quality in Saryu, Rapti, Ami and Gagra rivers, and the actions have been taken accordingly. Then we have certain studies which have been done on Mars harbors, talking about reservoirs of water located in the crust of Mars, founded through the NASA Mars Insight lander. Then the efforts by Sweden to cull brown bears during the reduction in the bear population for a favorable reference point has been done. So those are some of the other headlines that we have discussed in this session. In case you have any questions or queries, feel free to connect back to us. Thanks for joining in. Have a wonderful day.